Welcome to Dwell on These Things, a podcast of Dwell Community Church in Columbus, Ohio, where we discuss whatever is honorable, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, and praiseworthy.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike Sullivan. I'm here with Joe McCallum. I'm a pastor on staff, teaching pastor at Dwell Community Church. And Joe and his wife, Erin, are about to embark on a new venture of faith. They're going to start a church on the east side of Columbus. So, Joe, welcome in.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just going to ask you a few questions, try to climb into your brain and understand what led to you wanting to do something like this.
Okay, yeah.
I wonder if you could maybe tell us the first time the thought of leading an independent church crossed your mind.
Okay, well, I would say it was probably right around the year 2000 for me. I had met some people from West Jefferson, actually, that it's kind of funny. The one, I think, had parents who might have been in Xenos or at least knew of us, and their son had been in trouble at school. I think he was actually smoking weed at school, and so his discipline was that he had to come to our home church for 4 weeks. He was still in high school, but he came to our college home church. And so me and my roommate were kind of like, well, we're going to befriend this guy. He hated talking to us and was just like, I am not going to give you the time of day. I hate talking to you. I'm just like looking at the ground and just wanted to be anywhere else. But on the fourth week, I think he got so sick of talking to us that he brought one of his friends so that he would have somebody to talk to. And that guy was interested. And so we kind of met him, and I was able to give him the gospel. And he actually received Christ that night, but of course he didn't tell me until weeks later. But
wow.
Then it was pretty soon after that, he started showing up to our group without his friend who was no longer obligated to come.
Okay.
And he had this little tiny car, two-door car that he was packing people in like sardines. He had a couple people in the trunk. I mean, we were like, what is
No way.
Yeah, for real. From
awesome.
West Jefferson, which is
Okay.
30 minutes. So
Yeah.
we were like, okay, dude, we can help you with rides. Like, I don't think you
Anyone
have
willing
to
to
do this.
ride in a
yeah,
trunk.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they were wild kids. But so we ended up starting a group out there, which was great. I mean, a lot of people came to Christ, and it was really fun. And I kind of got a taste for like, okay, the rules are different out here, I mean,
Right.
when we are trying to say, okay, it's time to pray, and literally nobody's going to say anything. I mean, if I'm not going to do it, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And so I'm kind of like, okay, that's different. And people are extremely sinful, but they're also really hungry, and they're like this and they're like that. And just things were very different. And I was kind of like, I like it. It's like a puzzle, and I kind of like puzzles. And certain things are hard. We kept having to move where we met. And I was sort of like, that is annoying, but it's a challenge, and I'm interested in this. And
So the exhilaration of like having a blank slate.
Yeah.
Where there's no script to follow.
Exactly. So that was interesting. I mean, I had some friends that I was doing it with. It wasn't just me. But we were, let's try this, let's try that. And I think that we noticed, aside from the fact that they were far more open than usual, because, I had people that we would get out to home church and stuff, but these people would come, and it was pretty normal that somebody would receive Christ the first time they came out. Like, that happened often.
Wow.
And we were like, this is weird, you know what I mean? I'm not used to this. So, once we met some of the other people in town, we were kind of like, one, this place is very dark. They're very lost here. The churches that were there were not necessarily top tier, and they were not having much access to this message. And so we were kind of like, well, if in fishing terms, I mean, we're told to be fishers of men.
Right.
This is a fishing hole where nobody is bringing their boat.
Right.
And
the word's not out that
correct.
the fish are here yet.
So, it's different. Now, we lost a lot of people also because, when you get people, a lot of them they were high schoolers, they were getting into heroin. And I was just like, I've never heard of anything like that. I mean, I went to a huge high school, and I never knew anyone who got into heroin. I knew tons of people who did all kinds of drugs, never heroin. I was like, what? So
Out in the country, right? Or kind of
out in the country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Which, all kinds of theories on that, but who knows? So we did really well it eventually blew up in a ball of fire, but I kind of got a taste for, I want to do more of this.
The idea that it's possible to start something totally from scratch that has vitality, and that maybe I could do that again at some point.
Right. So, yes. For me, I think that was when I really was like, I got to try more of whatever this is. This is what it's not really that I had any issue with doing regular home church ministry. Was great. And I worked in the high school ministry for about 7 years, and that was great too. And I loved all the stuff that I did in Columbus, but that was special. I mean, I think that I couldn't get it out of my head. You know what I mean? Like, once I had seen that, I was sort of like, anytime I see an opening for this, I'm taking it. You know what I mean? And so...
And you did see an opening, right? Because something broke loose up near Newark or by Denison?
Correct. Yes. So I'd had a couple of fits and starts here and there, but nothing too much. But my wife, we were only just dating at the time, she was going to college in Denison, which is obviously not close to Ohio State. And so she had some friends there and wanted to start a Bible study there. I got to probably point out, too, that it was just standard procedure, like, well, okay, we have a machine, we have a system, it works like this, it works like that. Bring your friends from Denison all the way in.
Right.
I'm fortunate that...
The system being the mothership back
group,
in Columbus, yeah.
Which, why not? Because we have a great college ministry. But if you're going to bring a brand new person, that's tough sell. Because, 161 was not a freeway back then. It was... We
Country
got stuck
road.
behind tractors, like, for real. That happened often. And so it was like, maybe 45 minutes. And that was kind of a thing. And 45 minutes each way for a brand new person, it's too much. So we were like, let's try to start something out here. We found some other people that were going to OSU Newark, which is what we call country close. It's probably, 15 minutes from one campus to the other. But we started doing a group there in 2008, I want to say. At the very, very beginning, we had some people that came out probably the first couple of months. We maybe got up to 6 or 8 people, but it was actually at a servant team meeting. Tom Dixon had spoke about the idea of what if our church started branching out? What if we, had, showing some initiative and shared some passages on that. And a lot of people were praying about it. And we shared that with our leaders, who were themselves probably only 19, the ones who were going to OSU Newark. And they kind of just looked up all their friends and invited them, and all of a sudden we kind of had a similar sort of bloom that, like, tons of people started to come out. We started to see a lot more salvations.
Okay.
And really, that group has continued to this very day. I mean, that's
awesome.
That's the home church that I'm in right now. So,
do you think you saw the first one go up in flames? The second one persisted. Did something you saw your first time out kind of help inform what you did or didn't do the second time around?
Nope.
Okay.
Just
serendipitous.
Boy, I wish I could tell you. I mean, it's really funny that way, because I'll tell you, I've tried many of these. For a while, I was doing that kind of as my job. We tried a bunch of different groups. We tried the exact same script every time.
Okay.
And sometimes it worked, sometimes it did okay, and sometimes nothing.
Okay.
And you really do start to see that you are like, sometimes God is going to bless this group and it's going to go gangbusters. Sometimes this fishing hole is closed and you have to throw your net off the other side of the boat, and it is time to move on.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, I couldn't answer that. I mean, maybe if Erin was here, she could say some stuff that she might have learned, but
right.
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a mystery.
It is totally mysterious.
Yeah.
It worked. And I've had a bunch of stuff not work, and this time it did. And that's the best I can do.
So this thing you're in now, it persisted, and it actually eventually became a home church back within our church, back connected to the East Side cluster of home churches. How did you get to that point?
Okay, that's a good question. We had a home church out there, which again was, for the vast majority of the time, student. We would get periodically students, usually from OSU Newark. It's a little easier to get them out. Sometimes people from Denison, but they're usually a little more busy.
Right.
And we don't have as many connections to Denison. So although we do periodically get people from Denison, it's almost always OSU Newark, or COTC is a trade college that shares campus with OSU New York, so sometimes people from there. But those are the 3 colleges that are right in that area. There's also some people from Mount Vernon, Nazarene. That is, which most people from Columbus would consider that not close to where we live. But there's a different mentality out there. They don't mind to drive as much as we do, so they might feel like it's okay to drive that far.
Yeah, the rural perspective, that idea of country close, that is a thing.
Yes. So they would be like, oh, it's only 35 minutes. That's basically next door, which we're kind of like, okay, I'm not going to stop you. But so, yes, we would at times, get students, but you gets to a point where maybe they graduate, and we reached a point where our group had mostly graduated and was reaching more adult age. I think it was 2015. At a certain point, they had kind of approached us basically like, would you like to join the East Side Sphere with your adult home church? Which I knew literally no one. I kind of knew by reputation a couple of the people. And initially, my impression was, no, it's not, because I don't know them.
And we should say real quick, too, a sphere in Dwell parlance is a cluster of home churches they were inviting you to be part of.
Correct. And they have a central teaching on Sundays.
Right.
Sunday service, I suppose. And so, they invited us, and we try to stay as open-minded as possible, because there are things that make sense to us that, according to conventional wisdom, maybe this works or doesn't work. Right. But it's always something weird that ends up working out well, so we never want to say no until we're certain. And so we were like, let's take a meeting with him, let's just see. And so we did. And both my wife and I, after meeting with Kendall at the time, was leading it, and his wife, we felt like, these guys, they seem like they've got their heart in the right place. They sort of seem like kindred spirits to us. They're trying to start something new. We should try. I mean, we should just go to the CT. I mean, what's wrong with that? Let's just try, even though we don't know them. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to hurt anything, so let's see. We went there, and I'm not going to tell you that we walked in there and we were like, wow, this CT really blew our socks off. It was not like that at all. But the people that we met, we were like, these people are very faithful. These people are really trying. These people are really giving their best, and they have a mentality of trying to start something new, and they want help. And I knew that we were probably going to be the ones to help them if anyone would. Yeah. So I was sort of like, they want younger people. I could see why, because they are a bit older than, I think, average. I guess if they're listening, they might be offended by that, but probably not. And so we were like, let's do it. Why not? I think it was a leading. I mean, I think that we kind of felt like maybe the Lord is kind of scooching us toward each other. We have similar purpose. It just seems a little strange that we're both out here kind of working in the same area, parallel to each other, not with each other. Why should we not try working with each other? Let's just give it a shot. It's not like we're signing in blood like forever and ever if we just cannot work with them. I don't know why we would feel that way, because they seem pretty cool. We seem like we're mostly on the same page of stuff, and it's been great working with them. So I had no complaints, and obviously we're going out now together, so I'm hoping it's continuing to go great. But
yeah, so meanwhile, a lot of folks who know you know about this. While you're kind of finding your way to partnering with the home churches on the East Side Sphere, which will later become the church plant we're about to talk about, parallel to that, you went through some tremendous personal challenges. Maybe you could fill us in on that part of your journey.
Okay. Well, yes. I actually probably already had this going on to a lower degree. I have a rare disease called Cushing's disease, which, unless you watch shows like House MD, you probably have never heard of, but it's a hormonal disease. All it is you produce too much of one hormone. That's all it is.
Okay.
It's a stress hormone that's produced in the adrenal glands, but it basically just starts to prepare your body for being hurt, being sick, cortisol. Which
stress hormone.
So I would get kind of paranoid and kind of upset at people easily, because I think at the time I was running 3 or 4 times what normal, but I got up as high as 8 or 9 times what a normal person would have. So it was, and it begins to just tear your body apart, because you can't heal, because you're just basically, you're leaving the lights on all the time. Like, you can't get sleep, and you start to get sick, and your bones start to just fall apart.
Man,
So it
dude.
was pretty bad. I mean, I basically got to the point where I was barely even going to home church or cell or anything. I mean, it got to the point where even doing anything was like an ordeal. Like I would lose days on end. And it was really my wife who was just doing everything. I mean, I was there.
Right.
I was present, but she was the one who was running the sphere and running the home church and running our family, and I was kind of an invalid. I mean, that is really a fair way to describe it for a couple of years.
Man.
Because it took a while, even after they diagnosed it before I got treated, almost 2 years. So
It's weird where there's stretches, where Paul's stuck in jail and he can't do his normal thing, or maybe somebody's got an elderly parent to care for, completely disruptive, or you had this health crisis. Looking back now, do you see how God might have used some of this to help prepare you for what you're about to do?
I think I will say this, I guess, for myself. I mean, again, I can't really speak on behalf of my wife, but before, I think a part of me would have been, I mean, I'm naturally competitive. If I think to myself, like, wow, what if we try this initiative and it goes up in flames? I've seen a lot of groups go up in flames. I'd put my record against anyone I know that I have failed more groups and disciples than anyone, but I'm still upset about those things. I mean, I am upset to this day about things that happened 25 years ago. I mean, it's just like, I cannot let go. Like, it burns me up. At this point, though, I'm kind of like, yeah, I look death in the eyes. I mean, I don't care anymore. Like, I mean, if this thing goes up in a ball of fire, I will not enjoy that. I'm sure I'll be depressed. I am not looking for that. I will do everything I can to avoid that.
Yeah.
It will not be the worst thing that happened to me in my life. Not even close. And I think I have lost my fear of that kind of thing because there are worse things. You know what I mean? If I'm doing the Lord's work and it doesn't go the way that I want, well, you can do a lot worse. You can do a lot worse. Yeah. And I'm not afraid of that. You know what I mean? So I think that that's probably the biggest thing, is that maybe you start to second guess and third guess and quadruple guess every decision. Well, not anymore. I don't care. I mean, I'll try it.
Just live with what happens.
I guarantee you I'm going to make a ton of horrible mistakes. So what?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a fallen person.
That's
Big
how
deal.
people learn.
Exactly.
So at some point after being part of the sphere, the idea crystallized, let's not just be a remote outpost of Dwell. Maybe we can make this an independent group.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
Boy, that's an excellent question, and I'm going to give you a weird answer.
Okay.
I don't know. We would have probably said no if they would have approached us a couple years earlier, because I was still sick. I don't think they would have said yes either, because when they met with us initially, were like, we want to be a sphere like the West Side Sphere, and that was their thing. And they're like, good for you for wanting to do your church someday, and that's your thing. Mm-hmm. That's not our thing.
Yeah.
And that was where they stood. So the people on the east side did not want, that was not something they were interested in. It's not something that our family, at least at the time, was interested in. I am certain that the upper leadership of the church was also not interested. No one was interested. And then after a couple of years, we were sitting in a room talking about making it happen. So how did that happen? And I asked them when we had our planning retreat, raise your hand if this is your idea, and nobody did. And so I was kind of like, how weird is that? You know what I mean? If anything, that's one of the more compelling reasons to me why it is God showing that it's time to do this, because a lot of us feel pretty convinced that it is time to do it, and nobody can point to whose idea it actually is. So it kind of makes you feel like it is coming from above, because how creepy that a lot of people sort of simultaneously all kind of got the same exact idea at the same time. And it's not like everybody's 100% convinced at once. It wasn't like that. But the fact that we were in that room at all is shocking to me.
That is crazy. How did you and Aaron in particular, like what was the thought, or maybe a time in prayer, or just some series of events that made you go, you know what, I do think this is a plausible idea to make it an independent church?
Well, there were some things. I mean, again, I think philosophically and just practically and in almost every way, we like the way our church does things. But there's kind of big scale stuff, the way that our church does things. And out on the east side, we're less than 100 people.
Right.
So we're small scale. And sometimes when the big scale church tries to implement a thing, it doesn't fit. And you start to notice that adding up. Like, I do the children's program, the Oasis, a lot, and they will send us, for instance, like, here is a electronic touchpad check-in. What are we supposed to do with this? You know what I mean? Like, we'd be lucky if a dozen kids were here. You know what I mean? Like, this is useless to us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any use for something like this. And then they're kind of like, your budget's maybe a little bit high. I'm like, why did you send me a touch screen? I didn't even want this. And so, there are these things where you're kind of like, we can do certain things by hand, okay? That does not bother us. And I understand that it's like, this is a uniform system. This is where we're doing it. And we're trying to basically treat everybody fair. So it's not like it's their fault. How are they supposed to be telepathic and know what our needs are? They're not. But I'm also kind of like, certain things fit better if we just did this ourselves. And if they could just give us something different than what they're actually giving us. But that's actually extra work if we're kind of like, here, we're weird, we fit outside of your system, do a bunch of stuff, work twice, basically.
You're the people on the spot. I mean, who else would know better what the custom approach should be?
But, I sympathize for, suppose you were the director of Oasis, and you're like, we sent this out to every CT. And then you guys are like, we're returning this. You're making them do their job twice. So it's kind of doesn't fit on both ends. And that's a small example, but I think it sort of shows that it's like there's several things where we might need to implement things slightly different. And we might need to do things in a slightly different way. Now, that nothing theologically significant or, that's not like a big earth-shattering thing. But practically, it actually matters. And there's several of those kinds of things, and they add up. And
so kind of just practical considerations were a key piece of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be honest, when I came into the college ministry, there was less than 100 people. I knew everybody at CT.
Right.
And I loved it. I mean, that was great. And you are nimble when you're like that. You can turn on a dime and be like, well, we're changing the night we meet on. We're doing this completely different. You can't turn the aircraft carrier that is this church in Columbus that easily. You know what I'm saying? We're in a little dinghy out there. We can do whatever we want. You know what I mean? And that is one of our assets is the, mobility. We could change much quicker. There's only 4 home churches. It's a big deal.
So there were these practical considerations, the wanting to take advantage of being nimble and mobile. Yeah. Anything else that led to, okay, now's go time?
I think philosophically, I have said ever since 2000, like I shared this story when I was trying to advocate for doing domestic church planting. I should probably point out in the year 2000, when I first brought this up, I would almost always get run out of the room whenever I brought it up because it was just not the right time. People were not interested in that idea back then. But I studied history in college, and they would have us do these projects. And I did one on fishing of the Atlantic cod up in, it's kind of near Newfoundland, this place called Prince Edward Island. All the fish sticks that people ate in the 70s and 80s were Atlantic cod. And they decided at a certain point when they could refrigerate and do refrigerated trucks, they're like, we're just going to multiply indefinitely the fishing of the Atlantic cod because there's obviously infinite cod in the ocean. That's a given. So we'll just do this out of this one fishing hole forever. And there's all of these things, and this is for real. You could read this yourself. It is absurd. It's like they have never actually thought
there might be a finite supply.
There might be a finite supply of fish. And yet, we can just multiply this forever and ever. And so for a long time, if you look at the fish catch, it is multiplying right up until it isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden it starts going the other way. And some of the fishing companies were like, we don't like this. We're going to diversify. We're going to start to outfit some of our boats to do crab fishing or mussels or something like that. And they were kind of laughed out of the room, like, you're wasting money. This isn't efficient. What's wrong with you? But then one day they went out. There was 0 cod. And they put a moratorium on fishing cod, and it's in effect to this day. And that was in the 1990s, that this happened. And the only companies left are the ones who went over to...
Who diversified.
Exactly. And so, look, we're in Columbus. What do we teach about all the time? Multiply your disciples. Multiply your home church. Oh, by the way, make sure we all stay in Columbus forever. I mean, use common sense.
Yeah.
Do you think that Columbus is going to multiply population-wise to keep pace? I know that it's not.
Yeah.
So you have to get outside. You have to do something else
so
at
that
some
gets
point.
Us, that really gets us to, there are many fishing holes, a world full. You've landed in a new one, not too far from Columbus. Maybe you could describe for us some of the key features of this new setting that you're hoping to work in.
I will, yes. See, here's one of the biggest, I think, benefits of doing it close enough, but also far enough. If you were going to learn to ski, what if I slapped some skis on you and put you on a black diamond? I mean, that might do something. You might learn something, but you also might break your neck. And I think you'd probably want to go to the bunny hill and get some practice reps in, right? I'm not saying that this will be easy. I think it will be very difficult. But as far as church plants go, this is the bunny hill. I mean, I think that this is easy. You are not moving to Mars. You are
Similar setting, not too far
Correct.
from the expertise.
If you have family, you can still drive and see them. I will see my family. I'm going to see all my friends still.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. It's not a bad situation. I drive to them a little bit farther. Big deal. Not that much. You want to learn as a church how to do this? This is on the easiest setting, I think, and that's how you should be learning, is on the easiest setting. I don't think it'll be easy. I think it will be hard. I do not guarantee success by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that if you're going to be doing something like this, you should be trying something that is incrementally harder, not like, let's go to the most remote village in the world. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying, look, God is good, and there are tons of stories, people like Hudson Taylor that do that.
Yeah.
Praise God for them. And I mean, God is good. He can do anything. I'm just saying, as a church, this will be a good learning experience to get a range of different experiences. And the fact that the Intel plant is going to drop right on top of our heads, and obviously none of us knew that was coming when we moved out there. Seems like, again, the fingerprint of God, like God knew, and he had us all kind of positioned in that area. And then it's like, oh, by the way, the largest microchip plant in the world is coming right to where you are. So an entire city's worth of population is going to just basically
materialize.
Emerge.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are going to be transplanted people.
So this fishing hole you're going to, I mean, I'm sure you have thoughts about who's there, who we can reach, but it sounds like a dynamic place to begin because it's going to be transformed in the next decade.
Definitely. I mean, we won't know what it's like with the Intel until we do, but it's already, I think, a pretty interesting place. I mean, most people's impression, my impression before I actually went out there and lived out there was just like, I don't know, it's because you will drive through cornfields to get to my house, a number of them, and you're like, okay, we're way out here. This is, you know, we'll go out and watch the tractor pull later, and it seems like that kind of area. It's not exactly that way. I mean, there's definitely a lot of that. I mean, there's some true blue like farm culture and all of that. But you know, Denison is actually fairly liberal, and then you got the people.
It's a blue dot. In kind of a red area. Yeah.
And so then you've got places like Heath that are maybe 50-50. And then, you know, maybe New York's a little bit more red, but it's a lot more diverse than you might think. And there's a lot of different crowds and populations out there. And Newark is bigger than you might imagine, too. Like, there's a lot more people in Newark than I think people realize. So, like, if you actually went out there, you'd be like, oh, this is not some little tiny rinky-dink town like one of these. Yeah, exactly. It's not like, an Obetz that's just like, oh, there's a couple of lights, it's an exit, and that's it. It's a proper town. There's like an actual, it goes on for miles. But so there's a lot of people. And not to mention our home churches are spread not just in Newark, because we have one in Pataskala, we have one in Pickerington, one in Reynoldsburg, and one in Newark. So, you know, our groups.
That is a wide distribution.
Very wide. If you looked at it on a map, I mean, it's almost probably 45 minutes from one end to the other. So it's a huge area. And all of those areas are growing right now. I mean, it's like, try to buy a house in there. Good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard. Everybody's trying to get in there.
Just in living out there, talking to people in the different groups that are distributed across the area that you want to work, is there a population within that area you feel really drawn to and burdened for in particular?
Well, I mean, I feel burdened to the people I'm talking to at the time, since I'm kind of sanguine ADD that way. But I've been working at the Amazon warehouse, actually, and a lot of them are immigrants from all over, really. You meet people from all over the world there. I've got a lot of people that are Nepali. So I'm kind of hopeful because several people, as we've done some of these presentations, have mentioned to you, like, are you aware that there's a big Nepali Bhutanese population out east? Which I was like, I am aware, actually. I'd love to be able to get more access to that and try to, because I like hanging out with them. I think that they're cool and stuff. It's challenging. Not all of them speak even serviceable English, but I think it's kind of like, I really hope, I've been praying, and, we'll see. Certainly things like student ministries. I mean, my kids are starting to get into junior high and high school pretty soon, and we meet their friends, and I'm always interested in younger people. I feel like are always fun to work with, but I guess those would probably be the two main populations that I would speak for myself. Yeah. But like I said, there's a lot of pools. There's a lot of different potential pools that you might wander into. It's not as uniform as you might imagine out east. Like, there's a bunch of weird
That is the perception. That's just a bunch of good old boys out there. And
it's not
totally
like that at all.
not.
I mean, look, you want to meet some good old boys, I'll introduce you to a lot of them. But there's a lot of other stuff out there, too.
Yeah. So you mentioned your kids.
Yeah.
And anytime you start a venture this titanic, it's not just you and your wife. It's a family thing. How are your kids reacting to what you'd like to do?
Well, I would like to think that it is going well. I will say this. When we lived in Columbus, at the time at least, we lived in a neighborhood called Mays Meadows, kind of, near Morse Road and 71 area. Our next-door neighbors at the time, one of them was like 95, and the other one was in their 70s, and across the street, same. Mm-hmm. No kids. They were grouchy, I will say. And I would not have felt great with my kids playing outside at our house there. Where we live now, the kids right next door are the exact same age. Their family are believers. They're amazing. The family right next to them is the same deal. Across the street, another family, also believers. They have kids the same age, same deal. So, I mean, and they just run around like a pack. It's like how I grew up. Okay. And so that's nice. I once left my car on for an entire day because I forgot.
I hope you had a full tank of gas.
Yeah, well, not at the end, but, nothing will happen out there. I mean, it's like, I wouldn't say that that's true of every single neighborhood, but I guarantee you nothing's going to happen in our neighborhood. I mean, it is like 0.0 crime. And so that is pretty nice. The schools are an order of magnitude better than anything in Columbus. I mean, at least the public ones, but.
Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity whenever anything begins to give it kind of a distinctive ethos. You're bringing groups from an existing church that have an ethos, right, but you're also looking ahead at building a new thing. Are there some core values or, just central foci that you're trying to really put in front of people as you begin?
Definitely some. I mean, again, we like this group. I mean, it's not out of some sort of like, boy, these jokers in Columbus will show them how to do it. I mean, there's nothing like that. Right. I've grown up in this church ever since I was born, so I love being here. All my friends are here. My family's here. But, like I said, we're smaller. I think that we are going to try to push as hard as we can for flexibility with our people, because I think that that's our greatest asset, being small.
Yeah.
And we are going to try stuff that maybe doesn't work. We're going to try singing. It's biblical. So let's just try. I mean, I kind of want that to be the attitude of let's try. And
give it a shot.
If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. And I think that kind of thing is really fun. That was what was always so fun to me doing those groups initially. It's just like, let's just try.
High tolerance for failure.
Exactly.
Has to be part of an innovative environment.
Yep.
Yeah. I've always thought about doing something like you're doing. I look at you guys taking off to launch a new church and definitely envious. I've always thought if I started a church, I'd call it Little Rock because I think that's just a cool name. But I'm curious, you got the chance here to come up with a cool name, not Xenos or Dwell.
Oh, well, so you might be disappointed. But
what are you guys thinking?
Well, our name is already picked. Is Christian Community Church, which is about as boring as you can possibly get.
I was going to say, that's super creative.
Yeah. I will say this. I dunk on our name a little bit because it is boring. It was kind of by design, but it describes what I think we need as a church because, like I said, we got a group and Pataskala, Pickerington, Reynoldsburg, Newark. So imagine if the ethos of our group was you and your own personal walk church.
Yeah.
Okay? And they're spread out to the four winds. That
Yeah.
group could fall apart quick.
Right.
So you need something as part of your central identity. Like, no.
Yeah.
It's all of us.
Yeah.
Because that takes sacrifice. I mean, you...
Just to physically be
just
together.
To be together, exactly.
Yes.
You have to make sacrifices to actually
Right.
be part of that community. You got to do a lot extra, a lot of driving. You got to commit to that driving. You got to pull on those oars to make yourself. I mean, the gravity will push you apart easily.
Yeah.
So you've got to really have it in
That's
mind.
so
Like,
true.
no, this is us. We push together. We are that community. We will be together. So it sounds boring, and it is. Maybe it sounds super boring. There's a bunch of other groups that have that exact same name, so it's definitely boring. But it's important, so I like it.
That's great. So looking ahead, I know people are listening that really care about you and Aaron.
Yeah.
They care about the people that are part of this group going out. What can we pray for? Like, what would be some really helpful things to focus our prayer on?
Okay, well, you mentioned my wife. I mean, again, having summarized before, she essentially has been leading this by herself for years while I was an invalid, and that was hard. She is tired. I think, she's excited about doing this to an extent, but she's also like, boy, I just ran a marathon and a half, and now they're asking me to do another one. You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot. You know what I mean? So I think that something where, you can feel excitement for the potential of something and see the value in something and still feel tired and still feel a certain amount of fatigue on something.
Right.
So, and, we definitely want to be able to accommodate as a church, being able to bear each other's burdens and to find the best way to, the church carried me for a couple of years where I was doing almost nothing. So we want to obviously be able to return the favor for her. Not that she won't be doing it. I mean, I'm sure will very much be in the mix. But
So rest and then energy,
Yeah.
dynamism as she recovers. Yeah.
Certainly that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We rent from a school, which is where we're meeting for now. We rent from them. So if they decide they don't like us anymore, that's that. And that
Yeah.
has happened to this group before. So they
Okay.
have already had to move. So, anytime that we could get our own facility has been one of the main things that,
yeah.
we would like to do that. However, because Intel is moving in, people are buying basically condemned barns and getting into bidding wars. I mean, it's really hard to find something, and the prices are going much higher than they had been.
Wow,
before
you need
that
the
announcement.
miraculous deliverance of an amazing, stable meeting location.
That would be
Yeah.
for sure something to pray for, something we are very hopeful for. If we have to be patient, look, I remember having to be patient when we got main campus here. It was, it was a long march, and that might happen too. And, we have to be prepared for both. If Barnabas lays with property at our feet, I mean, I'm not going to turn it down. But at the
Indeed.
same time, if we got to grind it out, we have to grind it out. We can do either one of those things, and we're going to be flexible. But, that's something to pray for.
So maybe before we quit, anything you'd like to say just related to any of this that's on your heart to the people that might be listening to us talk about this?
Well, I think that will be really good for Dwell in general to see that it's like, oh, look, new initiatives, things that I could see myself getting involved with. And maybe it's not this exact thing. Maybe it's foreign missions. Maybe it's a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? But it's just trying to open up the playbook a little bit because, once you get to a certain point, I mean, how many people even can become sphere leaders? I mean, it's necessary that there are over hundreds of people. So it's very unlikely that you and your three friends can't all do that probably. You know what I mean? You got to find other stuff. Things like this can allow vision to kind of continue, even if you're not going to necessarily get the one thing that you're really gunning for the most. There's a lot out there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big world, like you said. I mean, there's tons of stuff to do. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. There's a lot of stuff to do.
A lot of fishing holes
Exactly.
to fish.
And that's one of the things I really like about our church out there. It's like, look, the people we got out there are really motivated, but somebody comes and joins up with us, I got to work for them. Guarantee it. I'll put you to work. You know what I mean? Like, I'd been in groups sometimes in Columbus where I'm kind of like, we got a huge stable. Like, we have too many teachers. We have too many workers. I hope I can give them stuff to do. I never have that problem out there.
So there's a chance to jump out of the nest and go work in the new area.
If you're bored, I'll give you something. You know what I mean? And that's nice. I think that sometimes, you get invigorated by that kind of thing, having purpose.
So, Joe, thanks a ton for coming in for this interview. This is kind of a novel thing for both of us. I've never been a podcast interviewer. You've never been an interviewee.
And I talk too much, so.
Oh, no, this has been super fascinating to just hear your take on things. So thanks a bunch. And if you're listening in, thanks for taking the time to hear Joe's story. Again, it's Christian Community Church, starting on the east side, outside of the Outer Belt, east of I-270, a new venture with Joe and Aaron McCallum and a lot of great people who used to be part of what we call the east side sphere of Dwell. If you want more information about Dwell, you can go to www.dwellcc.org, learn about our church, and you can also subscribe or follow this podcast by clicking on the link below. Thanks for joining us.